The inaugural U.S.-Saudi Biotech Alliance Summit is set to be held on Wednesday in the great city of San Francisco in conjunction with the 44th annual J.P. Morgan Healthcare Conference. I had the opportunity to sit down and speak with one of the event's co-chairs, Dr. Patrick Shiong. He is executive chairman at Immunity Bio and NantWorks, also owner of LA Times Media Group. We spoke all about the problems that it is trying to solve. Take a listen.
I think really what this is going to solve is really action. So this has been in the making for the last 2 or so years, where patients, whether they in Saudi Arabia, Middle East, Africa, and the United States, could access innovation and technology in real time. So it's about action and really the reveal of breakthrough technologies.
Why do you think now is the moment for a formal U.S.-Saudi biotech partnership like this? Have things changed? Have they evolved, I wonder, in even just the last few years?
Yeah, it has evolved from the sense that I was present during President Trump's first visit to Riyadh and Qatar, and had the pleasure and honor of meeting with the president and MBS. I had the opportunity then to meet with every leadership at the highest level. And that evolved to the point where it was very clear that Saudi Arabia wanted to establish itself as a biotechnology hub, but more importantly, deliver care in real time of technologies that we invented or developed in the United States. I shared with the president that transferring technology in healthcare and curing cancer and infectious disease is an amazing policy for world peace. And that's after work several years, we're about to execute and present that at the summit.
How do you most hope this summit moves from diplomatic dialogue to real execution?
Because it's already in real execution. That's the difference. This is not a summit of dialogue. We've had multiple private meetings of dialogue. I don't believe that we need to do think tanks anymore. We need to have do tanks. And this summit is about doing and actually seeing results, and actually results that have already been transpired in the United States and the rest of the world, and then shared with the Saudis.
We don't need think tanks, we need do tanks. I love that phrase. Thank you for that. Let me ask you a bit about the geopolitics of this all, Doctor. We talk a lot about national security. How is biotech now being treated as strategic infrastructure, and how has that space evolved, I wonder?
Well, when you think about what's going to affect the world, and we can talk about that at the summit, we worry about radiation, we worry about bioterrorism, we worry about infectious, we worry about chronic diseases. And Her Royal Highness will be attending Dr. Haya Al Saud, who really talks about, instead of just lifespan, we need to have health span. The opportunity now to take truly breakthrough technologies and actually transform them into real treatments that has already been tested, but also taking advantage of AI, technology, robotics. All of this will be revealed. And this is why I think, as a national security perspective, we need to have national preparedness, what I believe, sadly, for the next pandemic. Now, that pandemic could be either the infectious diseases. There's talk about the Permian frost melting and viruses that we've never seen, ancient viruses evolving. And more importantly, is COVID cancer? Is there a pandemic of cancer that's about to occur? All of that is national security, and us as a nation have to prepare. And I'm pleased to say that the U.S. administration is sending some very senior officials to the summit to discuss our need for national preparedness.
What do you think the COVID pandemic taught governments, Dr. Shiong, about where the system is broken?
I thought it taught us that we weren't prepared. It taught us that, in fact, we had none of the physical infrastructure, the hardness, the resiliency. We neither actually prepared systems at the biological level that could counteract that. The good news is that we've learned from that. And we at NantWorks, I spent the last decade quietly building that preparedness in the private sector. At NantWorks, we spent close to $3 to $4 billion of our own funding, not a single penny from the government, in order for us to build ourselves to be ready for, sadly, I believe, the next pandemic, or the what I call non-infectious pandemic of cancer.
I wonder, what does immunotherapy 2.0 mean in practical terms for patients?
Well, in practical terms, we spent last decade now running through checkpoint inhibitors. And as you see, what's been on the market here, that Merck is worried about a $150 billion revenue line. We believe that checkpoint inhibitors, which is meaning activating the T cells, taking the brakes off the T cells, are really important, but they would fail. So sadly, at ASCO 2024, the oncologist says, what do we do now? Patients are dying, quite literally, from lung cancer, breast cancer, etc., when they go on these checkpoint inhibitors and they fail, which means that there is much more than just T cells. There's this thing called the natural killer cells. And for the first time, if you combine the natural killer cells with an activated T cell, you could actually change the paradigm of cancer care, and that's immunotherapy 2.0. So the why is, what do we do now with hundreds of thousands of patients failing checkpoint inhibitors, dying of metastatic disease, and how can we turn that around? The how is what we'll be presenting that at the summit.
I wonder how you're positioned on the regulatory alignment of all of this, Dr. Shiong. We certainly know that can be among the bigger bottlenecks and headwinds to any progress. How do you speed that up without cutting corners?
Well, you're right about not cutting corners, but having said that, if you show that, in fact, you take a patient who would otherwise die in 7 to 9 months and they're alive now 5 years, you take patients across multiple tumors and they're still alive. So data speaks. It's so important to have data. And what we'll be revealing at this summit is we've opened the randomized clinical trial of lung cancer. And we have patients with third-line, fourth-line lung cancer, where we've now prolonged survival up to 25 months and patients up to more than 3 years. So that where data speaks, and importantly, patients, cancer's a war against time. I've been struggling openly with the FDA, the current FDA, to inform that this is an urgency. And you will hear some news from the Saudis, how they have actually not only accepted that, reviewed the data in great detail. And there'll be some very exciting news that we present on the 14th.
All right, special thanks there to the one and only Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong for that interview.